Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion. I'm Peter. You guys, I say it all the time, very special interview, but even more special because this interview we have history. He's my friend and yours, Sensei William Christopher Ford. How you doing, Sensei William?
I'm doing great, and I'm doing even greater being here with all of you folks. So great to be here again, as always. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Hashtag Dennis lives. He returns. Um, just a little context slash backstory for those that have not heard you, on the show before. You were my very first interview in the Miyagi verse back in
Hmm.
2017, before we even knew Cobra Kai was coming out.
Yeah, and
And
we did it just on the phone. We didn't even do it on
right,
video.
right, right.
And
Yeah,
as you
phone.
always like to do, you give a shout out to our great friend, the beautiful and empowering Pialani Requero, who is my dojo sister. And if it wasn't for her, we would have never connected. So we always give much aloha and much mahalos to the great Pialani Requero.
Right. Isn't it I know it's been 7 years and a lot can happen in 7 years, but can you imagine? I mean, who would have thought, right? Us back in 2017, this ride that we both go on, respectively. You with 52 Masters, you mentioned a series that you worked on. Ron Thomas was a guest on one episode. And then we just
Dervidal.
love, yeah. And then at one point you wanted to go visit Yuji up in Seattle, and so it was kind of nice to see you like kind of reconnect with like some of these people from the films. And then as Cobra Kai starts, I would just by luck start to get some of these interviews, and the rest is history, as they say.
It's been wonderful seeing you take off too, and you were kind enough to we had breakfast with Ken Cole on his birthday. We didn't know it, but it was his birthday, here in Gardena at the where did we ate at the
Like a bowling place that also
well
had breakfast.
oh, right. It was Gardena Bowl. Gardena Bowl. One of my
Okay.
favorites. I couldn't remember. And Pialani was there, and it was there's some other people there. It was a lot of fun. But you had given me some free tickets to Pallyfest, and I got a chance to sit in the audience, and it was really cool just to see you on the red carpet interviewing all these people, the creators and the stars. And I went, man, look at my boy Pete, man. Look how far he's come. And you were just rocking, like knocking it out of the park, So I was inspired by that, and I was so proud of you, and just
Thank you.
love what you've done with your show, and and you continue to work hard in your day job, and also take care of your family, and I really respect and admire that about you. You've always
All right.
you've always kept it grounded, kept it real, no matter what.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really have developed a friendship over the years. Not to get too much into our personal lives, but you reached out to me several times. When you just kind of see some stuff on social media, just to kind of check in on me, and so like I've always appreciated that.
Yeah, of course.
Um, so I guess we'll kind of like transition into like this whole Cobra Kai stuff.
Okay.
You you've done some things over the last few years where I've been um kind of privileged to help like in support. We did like Instagram Live with Sean a few years ago, Sean Kanan that is, to talk about his book. But so it's crazy. Shout outs to Cobra Kai Canada, who kind of saw something on IMDb about like a Dennis stunt double, and kind of made that announcement. Um,
Okay. Yeah, that was very good detective work. I
yeah, can you talk about like, after you find out about the potential of Dennis's return, and like just the rumblings in the fandom, what that was like?
Okay. I've got a little bit of my dog hair on me, so let me brush that off. When Cobra Kai first came out, almost immediately I started getting contacted by fans and saying, "Hey, I really loved your work in Karate Kid 3." And it was kind of baffling to me, like, you remember me from Karate Kid 3? That was so long ago, and it was such a small part. But the fans are, truly great fans. And we're talking globally, the UK, Brazil, the United States, and all these other places. And so some of these people would reach out to me and we started to develop, friendships. And it was really nice. And then season two, and then season three. And then they started dropping hints about possibly, Mike Barnes returning, with flashbacks and Terry Silver. And every season it would be, hey, you're going to be in Cobra Kai this season, right? Next season, you're going to be in Cobra Kai, right? And I was pretty convinced that I wouldn't be brought back. I didn't think I was an important enough character. And, I know that the creators, John, Josh, and Hayden, they don't like to do just um, cameos for the sake of cameos. You know what I mean? It's got to make sense for the story.
Mm,
They're very much fans of the original movies, and they're also very good at using the source material to create something that means something. That's something that's got to make sense. So we get to season five, and that looks like it's going to be the end of it. It really does. And so I keep getting asked. It's kind of like being asked if you're going to attend this really popular party and you haven't received an invitation. So on one hand, I'm flattered that people think enough of me to ask. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, listen, I'm not invited to this party, so it's kind of awkward, like, no, I didn't get an invitation, dude. And it's like, really, you didn't get an invitation? I was like, yeah, I didn't get an invitation. And we've all kind of been in that position, right? So, the strikes happened, the actor strike, the writer strike, and then they took that break and then they resumed production. And, I had always assumed like once you start production, then, if I haven't been contacted before production starts, then I know I'm not going to be in it. So, it's like, okay, no problem. You know what? There wasn't a place for my character to return. And the strangest thing is that I do not believe in precognitive dreams, but I had this dream one morning, and in this dream, I'm in my dojo and I'm cleaning up, and I take a chair and there's a cobra snake sitting down on the carpet. This is in my dream. It's really happened in my dream. And then I'm like, oh my God, there's a cobra. What am I gonna do? These kids are gonna be here any minute. So, it's kind of crazy. So I hear the kids coming in. I'm like, oh no. And then I look and the snake is gone. And I'm like, what are we going to do? I can't have a teaching class with the loose cobra in the dojo. So I'm in the dream. I call my wife and I say, hon, you're never going to guess what happened. I found a cobra snake in the dojo. She's like, what? Oh, no, 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 but it's all good. I got it taken care of. And she's like, wait, what? No, no, no. I called the veterinarian and they're going to send over a mongoose and they're going to take care of this cobra. And she's like, dude, what? And then I woke up and I was like, well, that was a really bizarre dream, strange dream, just okay. I have vivid dreams. I go into the kitchen, I make my coffee, and I'm drinking it. And then I go back and I check, I'm rarely on Facebook, but I use the messenger and I like to stay in groups and, things like that. And I've pared down my friend list because I'm mostly on Instagram. So one of the people that I was connected with was Josh Heald. And I see a message from Josh. And he's like, hey, I have a question that I'd like to email to you, and it's about karate. So can I email you from my personal email address? He's like, yeah, sure. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a technical question, or, I do Okinawan karate, I do Shorin-ryu karate. Maybe he wanted to ask me a specific take on that or something. And the email asked me if I'm interested in returning to the Miyagi verse because he's been sitting in the room with the guys in the writers' room, and they've come up with a interesting and fun way to reintroduce Dennis to the Miyagi verse. And I was kind of blown away because I just had this dream. And here's Josh Heald contacting me, and I was trying not to sound too excited in my email. And I'm like, well, sure. What are you thinking? And he kind of pitched me the idea. And he said, well, we're going to bring back Dennis, and he's still bad, and he's still working for Silver. And immediately I was like, okay, I'm in, you know. And he says, we want you in episode 7 and possibly recurring in more episodes. And I'm like, wow, that sounds great. So they sent me over a script, and I'm like, I love it. Let's do it. So, super excited, super, this is great. Like, oh, I've got this, I'm actually going to return, and I loved how they were going to bring me back, you know. And so, it gets closer and closer. I get contacted by travel people who work for their company. Do you want the aisle seats or do you want the window seats? Do you want, do you have any, dietary restrictions? And,
Wow.
we want to send over the driver to pick you up at your house. I'm like, I get picked up at my house and taken to the airport and then picked up. I'm like, wait a second, what's going on here? So up until the time where the driver actually shows up, I keep thinking that this is a joke. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get punked. This is just um, somebody's playing a joke on me. And I'm ready for the bottom to fall out. And driver shows up, and I go to the airport and I'm on a flight to Atlanta and I'm in business class. And I'm like, well, if somebody's playing a joke on me, they're certainly spending a lot of money. Um, we land in Atlanta and we go immediately to the production facility, their studio. And then they take me up to a wardrobe where I meet Frank.
Mhm.
And Frank is trying out different clothes on me and things like that. And I noticed, oh, I like these stretch pants because we can kick and so on and so forth. So, he had me going in the dressing room, maybe 10, 12 times to try different combinations and, taking pictures and all that. And then he goes, okay, great. We're done with you. They want you over at the dojo. And that's where the training takes place for the fighters. So they go over there, they got the mats over there. And the first guy to greet me is Billy Zabka,
Mm.
warm and friendly. And gives me a hug and he goes, oh, I'm so glad that you're here, man. And I love 52 Masters. And oh, we got to get a selfie together. I mean, he's treating me like family, And I had met Billy maybe twice, in the last 35 years. The encounters have always been positive, but he's just that guy. He's just so warm. And that's where I met Don Lee
Mhm.
and um,
Ken
all the other guys, Ken
Bearfield. Ken
Fairfield,
Bearfield, yeah.
Craig,
So,
and
and Craig's the
all the
PA.
I'm sorry.
Is Craig the PA?
No, Craig is like he's one of the stunt captains.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
And then also I met Tony Chung, and basically they start running me through the choreography that I'm going to do with Ralph for this particular fight. And then Ralph shows up and he's like thanking me. He's, oh, thanks for willing to come back. And I'm like, you're thanking me for being willing to come back? What an honor this is. It's been 35 years, man. So we run through the choreography and they did film it. I have this. So eventually I will reveal it, and I'll show you like the fight rehearsal that we do. And then they said, okay, great, take it back to your hotel room and study it. And we're going to run the fight tomorrow. And Ralph says, no worries, we're going to take all that like 4 or 5 hours to film these fights. We're going to take our time with it. We don't want to rush through it. And I'm like, that would be great. And the next day, I show up. I love the location. It's on site, and I love the fact that it's sort of like in a basement and it's dark, and it's very kind of cinematic. And we just run the fight. And the way that the fights are run is that every actor has a fight stunt double also.
Mm.
So the reason why they do that is so that in case an actor gets injured, they have enough coverage to where they do not have to shut down production. So like let's say if I throw out my back, but they've got all the coverage enough, of my face and so on and so forth, then they can still use the angle where it's the stunt double,
Mm.
and they can the production doesn't have to be shut down. So my stunt double for that day was Freddie Poole, who he went on to work on Tulsa. Um,
Mm.
and Freddie is a very accomplished stuntman, and Craig Hensington was Ralph's stunt double. So we did a version where I fought Craig, and then a version where I fought Ralph, and then a version where Ralph fights Freddie.
Mm.
And I don't think the stunt doubles actually fought each other. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It was I'm not sure, but And but most of the fight is actually me. Um, there were a couple of things that Freddie did for me as a stunt guy. And I want to give credit where credit is due because I don't want to take away credit from the stunt guys because I have a lot of respect for them. But when he that first shot of Dennis where he does that kick down the stairs,
Mm.
um, he kicks her off in the chest. That is Freddie, and I probably could have done that, but I was really glad that he did that because that's the very beginning, and they don't want you to get hurt. And then he did the table fall for me too. And he's got this wig, and and usually I'm like, I don't know, that stunt double doesn't really look like, but I looked at him and the way he moved, I was like, there are times on the monitor where I think I'm looking at me, but it was Freddie. So Ralph was really happy with it. Don, Ken, everybody seemed like they were really happy with the fight. And then they sent me home, and then I waited for them to call me again, and then I went back and I shot another weekend, and then I shot like 3 weeks. So it was like 3 or 4 trips to Atlanta. And they want to be very careful about leaks, and they say, keep it under wraps. But Rich Cancino, I think, sends me a link and goes, "Hey, man, somebody's leaking about you being in Cobra Kai," and it was Cobra Kai Canada, you know, and I'm like, and he did his detective work, and it got leaked on Freddie's IMDb that he did an episode of Cobra Kai and he stunt doubled for me. So
Mm.
that was kind of like the first leak. And I had to give it up to Cobra Kai Canada for doing the detective work. He was the first person to kind of like leak that. And me not being a major character or being a famous actor, it just kind of like it got out there into the fandom and then it just sort of went away. Um, but he was the first one to kind of to accurately predict that, and it was kind of like, wow, that's. And then I started getting like the direct messages on Instagram, like, "Hey, I saw on IMDb that you're going to be," and I'm like, huh, what? I usually don't answer them, like, I don't know about that. So that's that's basically how that started. And the fight we shot was longer than the fight that ends up the one you're seeing. Ralph and I both got to do some more cool things, but Netflix wants it under a certain length, and there's a certain style, and the way it's cut has to kind of match the rest of the episode and the rest of the show. So there's a
Mm.
lot of considerations, but I think at the end of the day, the final fight that you see, it it delivers. There's a lot of cool stuff in there, but it was longer, and I wish that we could have seen the longer fight, but that's just the way it goes. So
I would have liked to see Dennis get some more real good licks in. That's
I
I
did get some more, but it ended up on the cutting room floor, But you see me knee him. I hit him twice. I take him down. There were more hits that we did. It was a little bit more of an even exchange until the end when he goes back to his crane kick and his Karate Kid 2 move punching, and then he did the flip from Karate Kid 3 that he did on Sean Kanan, right?
mm,
The idea was to bring back those three things as Easter eggs for the fans, going, "Oh, he's using all his techniques that he used, his trademark techniques."
right.
So yeah, there's more. I did get a few licks in, but I did get to knee him back because originally in Karate Kid 3 he kneed me, so I got the knee back. I got the 2 extra hits, and I got the takedown.
Yeah.
So and the fight was pretty long, so I got nothing to complain about. You know.
Now, Don Lee, who is a fight choreographer, didn't he? I feel he recognized like your style, and then didn't he come up to you and kind of question what style of karate did you do? Is that
Well, Don, he gave me a little bit of he gave me a lot of leeway to kind of like, okay, before you fight him, come up with some moves, so I
mm,
just took moves from my katas, and that's why I was like here, and I did the kick, and then these are moves that are in our traditional shorin-ryu, Okinawan karate. And then Don saw my stance, and he went, "What style do you do?" And I was like, "Shorin-ryu." And he's like, "What?" style of short he knew. And I said, Kobayashi. And he's like, and I said, and then he was like, what's your lineage? And I went, Richard Rubago, Tadashi Yamashita, Shugoro Nagasato. And he's like, that's my grandmaster, you know. So he says, I have never met a guy on this show and actually that had the same lineage as him, you know. So he was pretty stoked, you know, and it was like another showrunner guy, you know, and we're the same lineage. It's just like, you know, like there's various branches that break off, but it all leads back to the same grandmaster, you know.
Right.
So it was pretty cool,
Yeah.
and I think he appreciated that.
Yeah. How amazing is that? And what are the chances? You
Right,
know?
right, right.
Yeah, all the different
I
fighters.
didn't know that he was showrunner guy either, you know. So, but I think that what he had, you know, there's an appreciation amongst traditional stylists, especially you know when we come from the same style. There's a respect that we have for one another, and that was really cool. And Don was really great to work with, you know, really flexible. And you know, I did not want to change the fight, but sometimes I would make a suggestion. You know, can I throw this kick here? And they were like, yeah, yeah, we can make that work, you know. But you know, basically whatever they gave me as far as choreography, I went with, and sometimes they would change it, and it's like, okay, whatever you want to do. My main objective is I want to bring life to this character, but I also want to make sure that I'm doing the moves as they show me to keep Ralph safe. You know that you know you want to make sure you're you know number one you keep your actor safe, and the other one is you make him look good. You know, and I would I when he hits me, my hair flies, and I wanted to make Ralph look like he's the badass that he's actually become. And I think looking at the final fight, it looks like we were successful in that because
Yeah, absolutely.
he whoops me pretty good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ralph paid me the highest compliment when I came back to Atlanta to do the Sekai Taikai fight scene with you know in the brawl, right? Um, he sees me and he goes, Mr. De Guzman, you know, and I shake his hand and, you know, how are you, sir? And you know, I had written him a thank you card just thanking him for being who he was and, you know, for, you know, again, giving me the opportunity of giving me that line so many years ago and just told him how much, you know, I appreciated him. And he was like, hey, man, just thanks so much for that card. We got to have more of that. We should have more of that in this world. And I said, well, don't worry. I'm going to make you look good. And he said, you always do. And I went, mm, thank you. You know, that meant the world to me to hear him say that, you know, that he
Yeah.
trusted
Yeah.
I wasn't going to hurt him and that I was going to make him look great, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the highest compliment you can get when you're doing fights, you know.
Absolutely. So what I found very interesting is that the first time we see Dennis and Terry Silver share screen is with him in the bathtub yet again.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Good thing we
So
all weren't in that hot tub, though. That would have been an entirely different type of movie, man.
when did you reconnect with Thomas again?
On the set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But was he there when you first arrived? You mentioned you saw Billy, you know, then you filmed like episode 7 with Ralph. When did you get to see Thomas again
It
for the
wasn't
first time?
until, yeah, it wasn't until I started. I didn't actually see Thomas until my third trip out to Atlanta, you know, and
Mm,
it was on the set of the Sekai Taikai set.
okay.
And he actually comes up to me. He's in his suit and he goes, "Hey, William, what's going on, man?" And you know, it was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is so great," you know. And you know, it's been 35 years since I've seen Thomas, and you know, we had a professional relationship before, but it was never like, you know, I was just a kid, and you know, he was already an accomplished actor at the time, and I was kind of intimidated by him, you know, and I just kept quiet around him, you know. I always thought Thomas was very professional, but you know, I don't think that we were ever, you know, I couldn't say that, yeah, he's my buddy and we hang out, but he was extremely warm with me. And he gave me his number and anything, you know, and we talked a lot about martial arts and, you know, and his Taekwondo lineage and some of his teachers with Master Jun Chong and things like that, and Philip Ree, his good buddy. So
Mhm.
and then you know finding out that he's still trained and that he has you know trained in jujitsu and that he's you know he really loves boxing and all those things were things that helped us connect. And I actually gave him I had these photographs that I took on the set of Karate Kid 3, and I actually had the original photograph, and I just gave it to him. I mean, I've taken a picture of him, and so I gave it to him, and he really appreciated having the actual photos. So yeah, we had a great time.
While on set, we uh, Dennis does share screen with like, Sensei Kim and Chosen. Can you talk about kind of just any interactions with like Yuji and Alicia?
Yuji, he's just a nice guy. When I went to Seattle at his restaurant, he made the fried rice for us. It was off the menu, and
His mom's fried rice, right?
yeah, his mom's
Yeah.
fried rice. It's off the menu. And when he saw me, he greeted me warmly, and he gave me a Chosen t-shirt. And
Yep.
he's just, a regular guy, a cool guy, very professional though. He knows his craft. And but he's still very grounded, right? Regular guy. I did not get a chance to really connect with Alicia. We share screen time in that one scene,
Mhm.
but we didn't really get a chance to build any rapport or everything. She was very nice to me in the sense of, we say hello, it's pleasant. And, she'd see me in the transportation van. She'd, give me the fist bump, but I never got a really chance to get to know her well, and sometimes it takes being on the set for like a long time and maybe more than one season, before you can achieve that. You can't get that with everybody, but it was never a situation with like, oh my gosh, these people are so difficult to work with. It was never that. Everybody at the end of the day showed up and did their job. But I will say one thing. There was So this is like the first day I meet her. I go into I'm in the makeup room getting ready, and she's getting ready to do that scene right outside the cafe with Yuji. This is after
Mm.
they come back from the beach, and
Yeah.
so um, apparently she had gone to a wardrobe first. Now I was inside, right? I haven't met her at this point. And then I hear kind of like there's a ruckus outside, and I hear kind of a scream, and then I hear like a bunch of people like rushing over, and I'm like, oh, well, I wonder what's going on out there. Apparently, Alicia had tripped or fallen off the stairs that go into the coming down from the wardrobe, the metal stairs, and
Mm.
she rolled her ankle. And so they bring her in and they elevate her foot and they ice it. And she's just like, well, just ice it and we'll just do the same. Like she's like, you know, in a lot of pain, but she says, I rolled my ankle before. So I was very impressed at her commitment and her ability to just she's like, well, we got to do it. So there's no time. We can't not do it. And she had a fight scene that was scheduled for, I think it was in the bar later that day. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I think that was filmed after the cafe, after they spot me coming out of the cafe, right? And they
Right.
follow me. So I was, very, very impressed by her strength, by her inner strength and her willingness just to plow through it. So yeah, that very, very much made an impression on me.
Yeah, I really like what they did with Sensei Kim in part two here. Just kind of not only more things to do, but interact with different people that we're not used to, like the two guys that she encounters like at a club or a bar, and she fights them, and I really like that. Can you talk about the filming the big brawl? And this is when Dennis fights Daniel again, and just kind of talk about like the logistics of what just looks like complete chaos.
Um, that was complex. I mean, it took a lot of, the stunt team. They would film all these fights and choreograph all these fights, and the way that they do it also is they say, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm playing this character," and the other character would go, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm playing this character," and then they go and they would show the fight moves, and then they would take this and they would give it to the actors, and that would be sort of like how the actors would get the information. I
Mm,
mean, there was just so many. So, they didn't necessarily have time to um, go over everything individually with each individual actors, but the stunt team is so good, amazing level of martial arts that they brought in. And the stunt team pretty much already figured it out. And then it was a matter of getting us the videos, and then we would study it. We would get a chance to practice it a little bit, and then they would do, each segment. But it was like it took a lot of organization and a lot of very good management, but they pulled it off, as you can see.
Yeah.
Um, the fight that I had with Ralph was interesting because basically we did 5 moves, and he judo flips me at the end, and then I'm on the ground, kind of looking at him, trying not to get like stampeded on. And when I saw it, how it appears on the show, they show like 3 moves and then they cut away, and that's how they keep all this energy. And the impression is that Ralph and I have been fighting this entire time, and then
Mm,
they cut back to the last couple of moves, and then they cut away, and then they cut back to where he throws me. So it really gives you the impression that it's like, oh, we've been fighting all this time, but it was 5 moves.
right.
But I kind of like how they did that because it expands time, and it just gives the impression that the fights are bigger than what they are. But a lot of them are just like 5 moves, 5 move bits, little slices, you know.
Now, in the one of the episodes there where Dennis hands Silver the envelope, and the envelope is given to Daniel. The Master Serrano stuff, are you able to give insight? Like it's that was that like Terry Silver's doing? I don't like if it has anything to do with part three, we obviously we won't talk about it. But
Um,
because I was kind of curious, like I was like, where is this Master Serrano? Was that real or I'm a little confused about that.
I was just going based on the way that I approached the character was like, Silver wants me to do something, I do it, and I go and I get something for him and deliver the results. So
Mm,
that's all the thought that I gave to it in that particular one. And they gave me the envelope. This is the envelope you're going to give Silver. Okay. And I'm like, so this is the information that we've been looking for, right? And so I suppose Dennis did some detective work, did some digging. He's probably well connected. The impression I get is that he's got kind of a base of operations in Spain now. You
mm,
know, the two guys in the dog cage place, um, I believe were working for Dennis,
okay,
So, they were kind of his henchmen.
right. So de Guzman.
Yeah.
His surname. So he didn't have one before. Yeah, can you shed some insight to where did that come from?
Okay, so that's an interesting story because, once they said, we're bringing back Dennis, I knew that as an actor, I needed to come up with a backstory for me as an actor, whether it shows up on screen or not. So I started thinking about Dennis's past, and in my mind, I made him an orphan who was running around with this gang, and the gang turned on him and almost killed him. Silver comes upon them and basically fights off the gang. Dennis is really messed up, and Silver basically saves his life, takes him under his wing, kind of adopts him as a son, and that is what that's where Dennis's loyalty comes from,
Mm,
lifelong loyalty. You
hmm.
know, no matter what, he's not going to ever betray his master, his father, so on and so forth. So I also wanted to kind of create a poem or sort of an analogy so that it was okay. There once was a clan of mongoose, and they were in the desert, and then one of them became injured, and the rest of the mongoose kind of turned on this one, being the weakest, and they kind of left him for dead on the sands of Tatooine. And the Cobra clan comes across them and they're about to devour him. And the King Cobra says, no, stop. And he slithers over to this mongoose who's about to die and says, if you swear your eternal fealty to me, I will save your life and I will make you powerful. And I will teach you the way of the Cobra. And you will be able to take revenge on the family members who betrayed you. And he makes this deal. So I was coming up with this idea that Dennis is the mongoose that was raised by a cobra. So he
Mm,
knows both cultures, he knows both fighting styles, and he becomes utterly ruthless. And not only does he go back and he takes out the rest of the members of his mongoose family, he starts taking out all the members of the snake clan who are not loyal. And so he becomes Silver's boy. And so mongoose, reverse it, Guzman.
mm, okay. Yeah.
De Guzman of the mongoose. So that was my creative process in coming up with De Guzman. I just thought, and I wrote this stuff out. These are all my notes, right? None of it is necessarily canon. It's just for me as an actor. And Josh writes me back and goes, "We're going to use De Guzman. We like that, you know." And so that was pretty cool. I was tickled that they actually made my suggestion canon, and it shows up on the call sheet as does De Guzman. And when I show up to my dressing room, on a piece of tape is written it's De Guzman. So it was almost like I was playing a different character who happened to be named Dennis back in the past. But there's only one time in the script where Silver Alice actually calls me Dennis, and that doesn't happen until episode 14,
Mm,
which I can't talk
interesting.
about.
No, no, can't. Um, I was about to say it's funny because you mentioned your dream about the,
Yeah,
you also
relating back
mentioned
to the
like mongoose.
mongoose. Yeah,
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've listened to the score of season one, but I believe there's an actual track called like the Cobra and the Mongoose or the Mongoose and the
yeah,
Cobra.
yeah. There is a track. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, something
and
similar.
I
So,
think it's Bert. I think makes a reference to mongoose being able to beat a
all right,
snake. And I
yeah.
don't know if that's what inspired the music, but it's a really great piece, and I've always liked that. So I like the imagery and I like the mythology, the archetypes. And that's kind of how I built the Dennis de Guzman character from, you know, I had to make something up because there's very little, there's nothing written. There's nothing in
Mm,
canon. So even if it doesn't necessarily show up on screen, it might show up in a beat. Something might show up that might be um, at least something organic where the audience may not know it, but it's, as an actor's process, I want to create something that's kind of, something that I can use as an infrastructure to build my character on. And when I first met Hayden, he said, "Hey, Josh shared your notes with me," and he said, "This guy thinks like us." So I was very flattered by that. And he says, he also said, "I don't agree with some of the things that, some of the conclusions that you came up with, Dennis. That's not, some of that's not what we have in mind for him, but I like the way you think." And I was, of course, saying, "No, no, no, no. It's just my actor's process. None of it is, anything that I'm saying that, I really want to do." I was hoping that there would be a reference to a shoji screen. I mean, like there would be a shoji screen, Easter egg. I don't think that really happened, right? And but I got the De Guzman, and I didn't even ask for it, so I was very, very happy about
that's pretty awesome. Um,
that.
Th- Since we're in season six, I know that you have plenty of content that you're waiting to kind of share to kind of reveal for a lot of people. Can you talk about like some of the maybe sequences you watched film, and also like when you first met like the quote unquote like the new generation, right? Like your Miguel's, your Robbie's. Was there any of those the younger actors any of their characters that you were particularly like excited to kind of meet in person for the first time?
um, Sholo was very nice, very warm, very respectful, calls me sir, you know. Dimitri, um, Gi-
Gianni there. Hmm.
Gianni. Sometimes I mix up the character names of their own names. And Hawk, uh,
Jacob.
super funny. I mean, they are just funny guys, as you know. Um, I met Taylor and Mary, very sweet people, and Kenny, you know,
Dallas, yep.
yeah, I met him and his mom, very nice. My if I have to pick a favorite though, it's Una O'Brien. Um, she's just so sweet, and her mother was so very kind to me. So I really enjoyed their energy very much. But they're all nice. They're all nice kids, and they work their asses off. They were very, you know, in conjunction with their stunt doubles, they were really, really working hard. They're out there doing the moves too. So it's not just like, okay, stunt guy, come over here and do the work for me. They're doing it too.
Hmm.
So they're trying to create where, to create a piece where they're working together and hopefully seamlessly the audience can't tell, who is the stunt double and who's the actor. But the actors are working hard. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this has been like an 8 hour day so far, 10 hour day, 12 hour day, and they're still working, and I gained a lot of respect, for the kids just from what I
Yeah,
saw. Just the work ethic was amazing.
right. And as somebody who has done martial arts like your basically your entire life, in part two, we get well, first off, we get Team Korea. We got introduced to them in the first part, but if you can include them in a lot of the new fighters in the Sekai Tekai, were any of these other martial artists were you familiar with any of them? Because there's a lot of like karate champions, people of that stature. But any of them did you know before meeting them in person?
I had heard of and I had seen footage of Reina Vallandigham,
Hmm.
and she's quite amazing. I have not heard of course Louis Tan.
Hmm.
I am familiar with his work and respect him as a martial artist. Um, Cowboy Cerrone came in, and he was the MMA fighter that Louis Tan fights in the
Oh,
cage.
okay.
Got a chance to actually watch them film that. That was pretty cool. And all the Korean fighters, the Taekwondo fighters, male and female, I hadn't really heard of them, but every one of them was amazing. Brandon Lee being able to just defy physics, but all of them were just terrific. Victoria and Alex
Hmm.
Wong,
Hmm.
um, Daniel, and the others. Just I just sitting there going, man, I wish I could do that. So listen, the level of martial artists that they brought in for this season is just phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
just unbelievable, and I just had so much respect. And I saw them. They did this scene, at the Sekai Taikai where it's this sort of like round robin thing where everybody's like fighting, and then they brought the stunt team in there to do a one shot, oneer, and it was just
Uh-huh.
all the stunt people, and just brilliantly executed. One of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. And they played a Journey song while they were, doing this thing, and I just thought, man, that is one of the most beautiful demonstrations I've ever seen in my life. So, high degree of skill, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, the stunt players um, are all just quite amazing. I liked hanging out with the stunt people and eating lunch with them. They seem to be my peeps. Because we talk about martial arts and stunts and things like that. I'm not a stunt
Yeah.
guy, I'm kind of a stunt fighter, but that's kind of my track.
Yeah. Isn't it wild? I feel you're probably the only cast member that has met both Brandon Lees on set.
Yes, I believe that's
Isn't
true.
that, yeah. So for those
Well,
that
well, maybe
didn't,
maybe with the exception of, I mean, Thomas Ian Griffith may have met him.
okay.
Marty Cove might have met him, but I don't know if Sean Kanan or Ralph Macchio met Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
But if not, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm one of the few that has met
Yeah.
both. both Brandons.
At the very least, yeah, you're the only one that has shared that story. And for those that are not privy to it, there was, it was in our first interview. If anybody wants to check that out, and I'll try to find it and link it in the show notes. But you shared how the Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son,
Yeah,
was on set of the other Try to Kid 3, possibly, was gonna possibly replace Sean as Mike Barnes.
right.
But yeah, and
It was
Sean was
because
able
of
to.
it was because of Sean's abdominal emergency. He was hospitalized and he almost died.
Mm,
So they were looking for a replacement, and Brendan Lee was definitely considered at that time, and he auditioned. He actually auditioned with Jonathan Appleton. Jonathan played Snake, and Brandon Lee played Mike Barnes, and then they went through the scene. Um, at that time, Pat Johnson was not impressed with Brandon Lee's martial arts. He was like, "Oh, I thought Brandon would be better." And both of them, they're no longer with us. But I remember Brandon saying, "Man, I got to stop smoking." I think I shared that before. Um, but yeah, ultimately, Sean got better, and
yeah,
he really wanted it, so he pulled it together, and it was a pretty serious emergency. He almost died. So,
yeah,
um, it worked out.
yeah,
Thank God.
yeah. Um, and as we get ready to wrap up here, if you, I like the okay. So in spoilers, you guys, if you listen this far and have not finished part two, spoilers ahead. So if you haven't finished, please pause at this moment. We're gonna talk about that really big sequence here in the last episode of part two. But you got to did you watch the filming of the opening sequence here with young Miyagi versus Daniel?
I did, and that was pretty cool. Brian Takahashi,
Yeah.
and I love the way that it was lit. It was very cinematic, and actually, that was one of my favorite sequences to watch. And it was really cool to watch it being filmed.
I love the film just because it is you know, period adjacent. It's a dream sequence, but it's still the aesthetics. It looks like something old. But
Yeah,
I do love the idea of there being a lot of legacy characters and actors on set. And here he is, Brian Takahashi, a new actor on set that's playing young Miyagi. And so can you talk about that as being somebody who has worked with Pat Morita and watching Brian Takahashi kind of taking on this role.
you know, Brian and I connected right away. We got along really well. Um, and it's a lot of pressure, you know. There's some big shoes to fill, right? You're gonna play young Miyagi, I thought it was a good choice and he looked great and I thought he did a good job. He's actually studied martial arts and it was really fun to watch him work. But he knew he was like, hope this, it's kind of like hope this works. I hope I do it justice. I was like, got this, man. So yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
And you
Um,
had a good talk with him. Now you got a chance to get to know him a little bit in one of your other interviews.
yeah,
So
absolutely, I did. Yeah,
great guy, great
yeah,
guy. I
he
really,
really
really
is.
admire him.
Yeah,
We could
hopefully we'll
probably
see
hang
more.
out. We'll probably become. Great friends.
That would
We're
be
looking
great.
at we're looking at like ramen places and sushi places that we can hang out together in LA. He's also here in LA as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, you guys are all kind of local to each other. So I kind of mentioned how you probably have a lot of pictures and videos and stuff. And if you welcome, for people to follow you, do you want to kind of drop your handle where people can follow, give you a follow and see these when you post them?
I'm on Instagram at William Christopher Ford. That's pretty much it. I'm not on Facebook anymore, really. I keep the account open just to stay in groups and whatnot and follow events. I do have a YouTube channel, and I think it's at Sensei WC Ford. But it's if you look up 52 Masters, my channel will come up, and I can always use a like and subscribe on my YouTube channel because that's where all my content goes. So those are the two primary ones, Instagram and YouTube. Those are where you can find me.